Hello and welcome back to the show, my beautiful audience. This is Pop Talk, and it's once again your host, Cody MacDonald. I'm joined again by very familiar faces, or voices, I should say, that have been on this show plenty of times. I got Evan Mead. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. Just craziness of the holiday season is setting in. Getting ready for some Christmas shopping, and just reflecting on the fact that a whole other year's coming to an end. I've done a lot of crazy stuff. I know
it's gone by. It's gone by way too fast. Yeah. It's crazy. Just shop online. Be safe out there. Do it as much as you can.
All right.
You haven't been drinking again, haven't you? Like the last time? We were pretty smashed in the last episode.
Well, I just reconnected with a friend I haven't seen in a while, and we only had one beer. We didn't get sloshed, don't worry.
He's showing restraint. There's hope.
Yeah. Oh man.
And also joining us again is Michael Lake, the actor.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Anytime, yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. This is a genre I have a lot of fun with, so I think it'll be a good chat.
Nice.
Absolutely. This is a subgenre that is kind of a guilty pleasure of mine. I don't know about you guys. I'm quite fond about movies about Mother Nature just saying, to hell with humanity, and let's just, like, fuck people and just show what I have in store for them. Tonight, we are talking about natural disaster films. Now, upon research, I just forgot. Like, if you just say disaster films, it kind of, like, divides into separate categories, no pun intended. Where you have your man-made disasters, you have your epidemic and pandemic, you have the alien disaster movies, and then you have the natural disaster movies. So tonight we're going to be sticking specifically towards natural disaster, just anything weather related. And actually, these are kind of the most popular ones out of this genre, but it's almost a subgenre within the subgenre. It's very weird how it breaks down like that.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, keeping it with the format, let's start off with categories, shall we? I'm feeling some tornadoes starting off. So, do you guys have any certain tornado films you like to bring up?
I would like to talk about, I have not seen the first movie that comes to mind when people think of tornado disaster movies is Twister. Believe it or not, I've only seen snippets of Twister. I haven't seen the whole thing, but
you've only seen snippets of Twister? Oh my god!
Only snippets of Twister.
Oh, we're off to a great start.
Well, no, hear me out, Cody, because a tornado disaster movie that does come to mind is Into the Storm, released in the summer of 2014. The plot of this movie is essentially, I like to call it Twister on steroids because I have only seen snippets of Twister. I know the basic plot. Like, it's basically about tornado chasers. Into the Storm is about so in Twister they chase, what is it, one tornado in
they chase several tornadoes.
I like to think of Into the Storm as Twister on steroids, because this tornado that they chase, the tornadoes that they chase are like monster tornadoes that rip apart airports and send 747s flying all over the place. Like, it's like laughably unrealistic with how bad these tornadoes like fuck shit up.
Well, it's funny you actually bring up both of them simultaneously, because really those are the only two tornado films that jump to mind. Have you seen these, Michael?
Yeah, I've seen Twister. I've seen all of Twister, not just snippets.
Okay,
of Twister.
Well, you Michael talk about
so, like, yeah, I think Twister is a very solid film. It's very like entrenched in its time. It's a very like 90s film, but it features like a pretty stellar cast. and I think it's like a pretty like fun movie. There's some big kind of animated, sort of exaggerated characters, and there's some great character actors in it. So like Twister's.
You got
Something I'd watch.
I love
Yeah.
Philip Seymour Hoffman as Dusty in this movie.
He has some great lines, and he's got some great moments.
It's the extreme. It's the suck zone. Like, you think this guy's gonna go on to do like Academy Award nominated really dramatic roles, but he started off with just acting like someone who just came from like a rock concert.
Wasn't
so
he,
funny.
Yeah, for
wasn't
sure.
he in
I think
Sorry to interrupt. Wasn't he in Patch Adams at around the same time he made this movie?
He must have been, yeah.
Because Patch Adams was in the late 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this was like Twister's like 96 or something.
96,
like,
yeah. It's Jean de Bont's second film that he did right after doing Speed, because he was a cinematographer in the 1980s with doing movies like Die Hard, and I think The Hunt for Red October was another one that he shot.
Oh, very
and
nice.
Speed came out. That was a big hit, and then Twister came out. Twister to me is it's such, like as you said, Michael, it is a very ridiculous film, but it's one of those like really solid summer blockbusters that has like really good sound design. It has a good, it has really good special effects. It's like kind of like the definitive tornado film. I think Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt have like semi good chemistry. I mean, it is okay. Yeah. And the funny thing is, I know, hey, Evan, I know that I don't know if you know this, but I've listened to a couple of Soda Speaks before in the past. I don't know if you know this. But
I'm glad you're that one guy who listens to our show. So you're that guy.
I'm very familiar on the way that you like to bring up the plots of movies. Well, I don't know about you guys, but like I'm basically about to like summarize all the plots to every film we're about to bring up tonight. Are you ready?
Sure.
Okay. Hey man, I'm just gonna take a sip.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take a sip of my drink, and here's the plot to all these films. You ready? A recently separated man. he's either neglected by his former partner or his children, and he's feeling, like, oh, I wish it can work out between us, but there's a natural disaster happening, and I'm in the midst of it. And through this adventure, he wins them back, his partner and or his children. That's the plot. That's the plot to every film we're talking about. And similar to Twister, like Twister is all about him trying to sign divorce papers from Helen Hunt, and then
that's right.
He was a former storm chaser, because Helen Hunt is kind of like the leader of this storm chaser crew. And he kind of gets wrapped up when this invention that they call Dorothy, named after Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz. It's
Clever.
A device that has all these like cube sensors inside that once you like plant it near a tornado, all these sensors will get sucked up into the tornado and start like I guess like there's a lot of science behind it, but it basically like determines the startup of a twister, so it gives people a little bit more of a warning to like go to their shelters and all that. Like they're studying tornadoes. But what's so comical about this film is that there's a competition rivalry in this film, and it's led by Carrie Elways doing a very questionable Southern accent, and they're all in like black cars, because it's like, oh, black means they're bad.
Aww.
As opposed to like all these colorful characters in the main storm chaser crew.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what it is. It's just them chasing. It's just going from like scene for scene of them just like, oh, there's a tornado here. We're going to get close to it. Oh, we're about to die. Oh, the tornado went away.
Yeah.
That's basically the movie. Every time they're in like any sort of form of danger, the tornado just says, all right, I'm out. Now, I have seen Into the Storm. I guess we'll talk about both of these simultaneously, because these really are the only two tornado films that jump to mind. I remember seeing this film as like an early screener, like 2 weeks before it got released. My friend and I just got invited to it. And I don't remember much of the film other than just a scene where like the main guy is like in that storm chaser vehicle and he gets sucked up into the tornado, and he goes so high up that he's like past the clouds, and it's so quiet, and then he just drops back down into the tornado and it starts spinning up again. Like I remember thinking, ooh, the sound design is really good in this movie. Like that was kind of effective. But other than that, it just came off like a generic kind of. Oh wait, wasn't it found footage?
It was found footage. You're absolutely right.
Oh,
and
I just remembered that.
There are a common thing you'll notice about disaster movies is factions of characters will come intermingled with other factions of characters. In this case, you have the storm chasers who are in their big like armored truck that's like half tank, half truck because they want to get the guys. The head storm chaser's goal is to get into the center of a tornado to actually film it because that's never been done before apparently. Yeah. So he wants to be like a weather documentary pioneer. And his assistant is played by Laurie from The Walking Dead. So, all I remember is that
right, Laurie was in it.
Thorin Oakenshield from the Hobbit movies, who is played by Richard Armitage, was also in this movie. He plays the principal of some high school that is caught in the path of a tornado, and he doesn't get along with his kids. Yeah, seriously, Cody, you're right. Like, what the hell is it with bad father figures in disaster movies or neglectful parents in disaster movies? I don't understand.
There's a few beats or rhythms that you see in quite a few of these movies. Cody, you're correct. And I think there is usually some kind of family sort of drama to kind of give the hero a personal stake in it. Like they always have to have, something that they're fighting for. So I think there's contentious family kind of relationships are definitely a key feature of this genre.
I think what it is that Hollywood must have found that the average Joe, the blue collar sort of livelihood of people that are like that probably just they hold their family dearly, and if anything comes between that, then they're not gonna stop anything from breaking that relationship up. Right. But it's just it's so tired, and it's so like something you come to expect from these movies that it's almost like here we go again, going through the motions. It's funny. It's a common thing that will definitely be kind of treading over and over again tonight when we talk about these films, because really that's all it's about. Yeah, not much to really say about. I mean, I can't really remember Into the Storm that much because it's all that I remember. But do you guys? You said you've seen this, Michael, right?
Into the Storm? No, I was conflating it with another movie in my head, but no, I haven't seen that.
So, Michael, you've only seen snippets of it, huh?
No, less than snippets. None of it.
Oh, okay.
Maybe a trailer. Maybe if we're counting a trailer as a snippet.
Okay.
Twister is something you definitely need to watch, Evan. There's an opening scene that is. I mean, I don't know if it's a spoiler. It is just an opening scene.
I've seen the opening scene where the family gets sucked out of a bomb, where the husband of a family gets sucked out of a bomb shelter. Yeah, that's horrifying.
It's pretty well done, actually. It gets me every time, actually. Like, just imagine that you're a kid watching your dad, getting sucked up into a tornado, and apparently that was Steven Spielberg's idea because he was the executive producer of the film.
Oh, okay.
He said to Jean de Bonnet, because there's a lot of history of this movie, like where they didn't really expect this to become as big a hit because there was a lot of production problems and the script was getting written as the movie was getting made and all that. Like it was a lot of rewrites, a lot of just kind of stuff like that. You definitely look more into that. But Steven Spielberg pitched the idea of like, wouldn't it be so great if you start off the movie with your main character witnessing their father getting killed by a tornado, and that kind of launches Helen Hunt's character's I think it's Joe. Yeah, I think her name's Joe in the movie. That kind of like launches her kind of complex relationship of why she wants to get to tornadoes, like get close to tornadoes. It's interesting.
I mean, that was from Into the Storm. It's basically thrill seekers who like they just want to get to tornadoes because they think they're cool, and then you have mixed the thrill seekers with the like high school students and the high school principal who are just average Joes. It's like mix the thrill seekers with the average Joes. There really isn't much to it.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of hollow. Wait, wasn't there two redneck characters in Into the Storm that were like recording the whole time? I
don't remember.
I remember something. I remember like halfway in the movie, you think that both of them got sucked up into the tornado, but as like a post-credit like after the post-credit scene in the movie, like after it's done, it just shows them like hanging in the tree by their underwear or something like that. I don't know. It's definitely not their underwear, but it's like they're just like, oh, look at us, we're survived and we're still recording. We're gonna go put this up on YouTube or whatever. Like it's.
Wow.
I just remember going, what the fuck? This is dumb. Like, suck me sideways. That's how I can end that category. Tornadoes. Why don't you go blow me, tornado?
Would you say this
All
genre?
right, let's go.
Would you say this genre blows?
Yeah.
I didn't think it was physically possible, but it both sucks and blows.
Let's go to an eruption. I like to interrupt this podcast and bring us to the volcano territory.
Oh yeah.
So let's just get this out of the way right now. Let's go to 1997, gentlemen, and let's talk about the two volcano films that came out the same year. One called Volcano.
I got it.
And
this movie has
and Dante's Peak. So we got the two volcano films going back to back here.
I have seen
Right.
the second half of Volcano. I have seen all of Dante's Peak.
What about you, Michael?
Okay. I've definitely seen Volcano, and I don't think I've seen Dante's Peak.
Oh,
I
okay.
just
Because I was
gotta
about to ask right away, like, what's your guys' vote if you've seen these?
Well, which I can't. Well, all I'm gonna say is they're very different movies. One is set in the country.
They are, yeah.
One
Yeah.
is set in the country, like in a rural small town. The other is set in a major city, Los Angeles. And by the way,
Yeah.
but not to get ahead of ourselves, but Volcano has one of the cheesiest taglines I've ever heard for a movie. The coast is toast.
I love it.
Well,
That's so good.
To me, there's something so funny just about the overt simplicity of the title just being Volcano. Like, I don't think a studio today would just make a movie so kind of base. Like, they would have to like jazz it up somehow. It would be called like the Hell Storm, whatever. But like, it's just called Volcano.
And that's the
And
thing.
to me, that will never not be funny.
And that's the thing is that Volcano is such a Hollywood movie. Like, I mean, when you watch it, you can definitely tell there's a clear difference between the amazing visual effects of the lava streaming down the Los Angeles road, and then you cut to the reverse of like just all the actors saying, "What are we gonna do about this lava pouring down the street?" And it's clearly like a difference. There's like, you feel like that it's clearly a sound studio. Like they're just pointing at something past the camera that they're clearly not interacting with properly. I don't know. And it's one that I watch the most out of these two. You know what? Right now, I think I would prefer, if you're talking about scientific realism, Dante's Peak is definitely a film that portrays a volcano accurately.
Yeah.
Like pretty much all you get is like ash and smoke, and then the initial like eruption at the end, and you kind of see a little bits of lava here and there. In Volcano, it's just lava.
Well,
and it's just like,
also,
that's all it is. It's it's just lava.
in Volcano, the premise is actually based off of, something that is real but won't happen. For example, the plot of Volcano, for those of you who haven't seen it, is
it's Tommy Lee Jones is not so hot of a father.
Yeah,
There you go.
The plot is, the disaster is the La Brea tar pits, which once was an active volcano years ago, erupt.
Yeah.
The La Brea tar pits is a real landmark in Los Angeles, and it erupts into a super volcano, and everything goes to shit in LA. But Dante's Peak is based off of this random ass volcano that they don't really think will go off, but it's gonna erupt and it's gonna bury this small town in ash and lava and everything. Now, please correct me if I'm wrong, but from my understanding, Dante's Peak actually was actually inspired by a real volcanic eruption in the U.S., Mount St. Helens. I think the eruption of Mount St. Helens was a big inspiration for Dante's Peak. I don't know for sure, but If anyone wants to verify that, go ahead. But I just remember reading about the eruption of Mount St. Helens, and it was roughly the same idea, like rural American town devastated by a horrible volcanic eruption.
Yeah, no, and it does definitely go into the tragedy a little bit more in Dante's Peak. Like that's what I mean. It's a lot more realistic. But there are some unintentional funny parts in the film. Like there's one part where there's some like secondary character that was trying to like get across a bridge on his car with a couple other people, and his car didn't make it, and he's trying to get out of the car because the bridge is getting like pushed by this like almost tsunami of like broken tree branches and everything. And he's trying to get out of his car, and him and the bridge and his car, the bridge and the car literally get tipped over all the way. And for some reason, the sound editors were like, "Let's just throw the Wilhelm scream in this character's death."
That was William Shatner.
Why?
That was William Shatner's character. Yeah, just for those of you.
Oh,
William Shatner was in Dante's Peak.
That's not William Shatner, but it's funny. It does look like him though. Actually, yeah.
Oh, it's not.
I can picture the actor's face. It does look like him, but it's not. That's so funny. That's so funny.
But let's say
it does look like him.
Why did they got big action stars for both of these movies? Like Volcano had Tommy Lee Jones, and in a weird casting choice, Pierce Brosnan is in Dante's Peak. And it's so strange that he lost his wife like at one point, I think, and he's instructed to go check out this volcano in this small town. And because he's a single widow, he befriends the local. She's not the mayor. She's like the town like spokesperson or whatever, played by.
Oh, I thought she was the mayor. Yeah, I thought Linda Hamilton was the mayor.
It would make sense if she was, because it's such a small town.
Yeah, I think she is the mayor. Yeah.
She's the mayor, and essentially like she and Pierce Brosnan kind of start a budding relationship, and it brings them closer when he saves her whole family in like when everything goes to hell. And literally when everything does go to hell, I remember the saddest scene that made... Okay, so I want to talk about two scenes, if it's okay with you, Cody, that made me feel in each of these movies. Like, you remember how when on my show, so to speak, you talked about the traumatic scene where the subway worker melts in the lava, and that made me feel terror, and that made me feel sad for the guy who just disintegrates in this lava.
It's an effective scene, like I could definitely look past it now, but
the scene that made me feel in Dante's Peak, I remember watching it with my brother. On the first time we ever saw it was on TV, and we almost cried when the grandma gets exposed to the acid lake and she dies. That was so heartbreaking.
Yeah, her you can definitely tell she's trying to save her grandkids when she gets into the lake and just pushes the boat to shore, and just hearing her just scream because like she's in boiling hot water. It's tough. It's generally kind of it's tough. It's tough to watch that. They play it up kind of straight. Yeah, it's that's what I mean. It's very effective in its realism. Going back to that.
Yeah.
And Volcano ends with the funniest sort of way ever, where they're basically maneuvering the lava to go in certain places. That's what's so funny about this movie.
Yeah.
And then it ends with a fucking Randy Newman song of "I Love L.A."
What?
As there's a volcano literally erupting as the final shot of the movie. It says volcano status active as they're playing like "I Love L.A." by Randy Newman.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the fuck? How am I supposed to feel right now?
That's weird.
It's so funny.
That's a lot of these disaster movies have very abrupt shifts in tone, I've noticed.
Well, speaking of abrupt shifts in tone, why don't we talk about the two asteroid films that came out a year right after that? Okay. Starting with a personal favorite of both Evan and mine's, Armageddon and Deep Impact.
I feel like we're going to have more to say about Deep Impact this time, because Lyle and I have talked about Armageddon several times on So to Speak. We talked about it on our Guilty Pleasures episode, and we talked about it on our first episode ever about bad movies. Armageddon is like in terms of its scientific realism, Armageddon is laughable because we've said it before, like an asteroid the size of Texas is going to hit Earth in less than 3 weeks. By the way, if we were to discover a Texas-sized asteroid coming toward us, and we have less than 3 weeks to get to do something about it, we're dead. But no, we have these. We can't call astronaut oil drillers, and we can't. Oh, by the way, the trope of I feel like the pop talk formula for talking about these disaster movies is going to give some stuff about Armageddon that we haven't talked about before. So the trope of the neglectful father definitely applies, and not only that, another trope that is common in the neglectful father's child is romantically involved with someone the dad hates. In this case, Liv Tyler and Ben Affleck.
Yeah.
But I've said it before, but if you don't like their love story in this movie, pop in Jersey Girl, you'll feel much better. Because Liv Tyler and Ben Affleck reunite for that, and it's better. It's a better movie.
Yeah.
But
you two have clearly seen both of these films, right?
I'd like to say more about Deep Impact because we haven't talked about this. This is like a, so to speak, pop talk first because we've never talked about Deep Impact. I don't think on this show or on your show or my show. But Armageddon.
Right.
It has a great cast. It has a great cast. It's got some epic scenes. My favorite scene is the scene with the president's speech and the guys are walking towards the space shuttles to go, and the whole launch scene. That's a truly epic movie moment, and I actually feel like that's the one part of this movie where it feels legitimately powerful to watch. But other than that,
it feels a bit like we're just trying to do the Independence Day speech kind of scene. But it's still fine.
Yeah,
it's still fine.
I hear you.
It's still fine.
I hear you, but the Armageddon speech, the president's speech in Armageddon happens in the middle of the movie, and Independence Day it happens at the end. So, the other thing I want to talk about is so we talked about abrupt shifts in tone. There are the two most abrupt shifts in tone in this movie that I'd like to talk about are so there's there's three of them that stand out to me. There is this the big general that is in charge of the Space Command unit at the Pentagon is talking about incoming objects headed towards Earth, and the space shuttle Atlantis has just exploded, so they don't really know what's going on, and then they're tracking objects entering Earth's atmosphere. They don't know they're asteroids. They think it's missiles coming from a foreign country, and then as a result, they scramble a bunch of jets. And then the general played by Keith David says, "Until we understand what's going on here, we go to DEFCON 3." Immediately smash cuts to New York City, and some dude is biking with his little pug on a bike. "Hey, little Richard, you and me, man, we're going to the top, baby, big time." I'm like, is this a disaster movie? And then from that, you have him confronting this Polynesian dude in the street. Say, like, "If you weren't Christian, I'd be throwing your fat pineapple eating ass through the window." And by the way, racial stereotypes.
And then literally a meteor literally like goes right down and like destroys the whole block.
Yeah. No, and by the way, racial stereotypes galore. Guess who directed this fucking movie, for all two of you who don't know out there?
I think it was that guy named Cody MacDonald. Such a hack.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
Cody, his name was Michael May.
Michael May. Oh my God, yeah. No, I think we talked about this before. There are just so many crazy shifts in tone in this film.
One of them,
one more I want to bring up. Oh, sure. Yeah, sorry.
The whole incident, the whole scene where they discover what the threat of this movie is. So, astronomers at NASA basically. By the way, the giant Texas size asteroid is spotted by some farmer in the middle of nowhere, and he's not getting along with his wife. In fact, there's a scene where it's like, "I want to name her Dottie after my wife. She's a vicious, life-sucking bitch from which there is no escape." I'm like... And then it cuts to NASA informing the president of the United States, "Yeah, this thing Is this going to hit us? Oh, we're figuring that out right now. What kind of damage are you talking about? Oh, total, sir. It's what we call a global killer. The end of mankind. Doesn't matter where it hits. Nothing will survive, not even bacteria. 2 seconds later, a dude runs in. We have 18 days before it hits Earth. And then smash cut to Bruce Willis hitting golf balls at Greenpeace protesters. What a horrible tone shift.
And set to ZZ Top.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, what I was gonna say was, I'll let Michael speak in a second, but the one big takeaway that I get from Armageddon is that the mission itself, everything goes wrong. Everything down to like them just going up to before they even get to the asteroid, they just go up and they take a pit stop at this Russian space station to fuel up on more gas, and even that goes wrong.
Yeah.
The whole fucking station almost blows up because of a gas leak.
And Peter Stormare.
Peter
Stormare.
Yeah.
Peter Stormare.
Oh yeah, he's really good. Well, Peter Stormare steals the movie. Like, it's either him or Steve Buscemi who steals the movie. Fargo reunion. There we go.
That's why I told you, touch nothing but your bunch of cowboys.
After they all took off into the space shuttles after the Russian space station scene, I was literally waiting for someone to say, "Boy, we're off to a great start." Like, we haven't even got to the fucking asteroid yet, and we all just almost died.
Yeah.
Like, it's just so funny. Wait, Michael, what did you think of Armageddon? Sorry.
So funnily enough, I don't know if you guys know this or not. The very first time I experienced Armageddon was with you
Seriously?
guys when we watched it last year.
Was that when we ripped it?
Yeah, that was the very first time I ever saw it.
Oh, okay.
I felt like I had seen it because I knew all the jokes about it, and I knew kind of the mania kind of surrounding that movie.
Yeah.
But I had a lot of fun specifically in that context, just picking apart what a crazy ass movie it was.
Yeah.
And I was experiencing it for the first time, just to hear the kind of like, just to kind of hear from someone who had more experience with the movie talk about how funny and weird it was actually quite an engaging experience. I think that's the way.
That was David's first time seeing it too, and he was like, "I don't understand why you guys think this is bad. I think this is fun." It's like, yeah, it is fun, but it's laughable.
And I think I'm gonna circle back to this maybe in my final moments or my final thoughts tonight, but we've touched on it briefly. I really do think that the cast makes a big difference in a disaster movie. You might not think of, the human actors necessarily having a huge amount of weight or tipping the scales at all in an effects-driven kind of blockbuster movie, but I actually do think, in some of my research, I think that the human cast really does make a difference
for sure
to the quality of your disaster movie. And no one's doing like incredible work in Armageddon, but the fact that there are some fun character actors in it, like Steve Buscemi, definitely like kind of elevated the experience for me.
It's a very good point. Yeah, it's very comparable to Twister, where just on that storm chaser scene or on that storm chaser team, you have so many like variety of people. I mean, there's the guy Alan Ruck, like Cameron from Ferris Bueller.
Yeah,
there's so many like it's very eclectic, like different types of faces that you see in movies, and the same can be said about Armageddon. Like Michael Duncan Clark and Steve Buscemi and Owen
Michael Clark
Wilson.
Duncan. Sorry, I gotta correct him. Michael Clark Duncan. May he rest in peace.
What the hell? What name did I just say?
Michael Duncan Clark.
Sorry.
So good.
I'll put. I'm sure he's out there somewhere, that man, and you're doing a good job.
May he rest in peace. He actually passed away 10 years ago.
Yeah. Oh, he was.
That long.
He
ago.
was great in the Green Mile. Yeah. Green Mile, best performance in that movie.
Yeah, no, he was great.
Owen Wilson, Steve Buscemi, Peter Stormare, like we said.
Keith David.
What's his name?
Billy Bob Thornton.
Billy Bob Thornton. Yeah. There's that's what I mean. Like, these movies are entertaining more of its cast. Now, I know that we haven't talked about Deep Impact that much because very comparable to this category that we just tackled, where there's one that's more realistic and there's one that's more Hollywood and just kind of crazy. Deep Impact is definitely the more realistic movie in terms of like, okay, if we got word that an asteroid is coming to Earth it's like, how do we handle this? Well, there's really not much we can do. We just have to sort of wait the inevitable. And it handles it realistically in a way where, well, yeah. Wait, are you about to say it, Evan? Yeah.
I'm actually. Well, I was gonna. Well, I have a couple thoughts on Deep Impact that are in relation to your format, but one thing I would like to point out is actually I'll let you finish your thought. Go ahead.
Well, I actually thought you were about to say like the more realistic movie to handle like an asteroid hitting Earth was that Canadian film Last Night.
I brought that
came
up.
out that. It also came out in 1998. It's a Canadian film where it's set in Toronto. It's shot in Toronto, and it's just people. You don't even see special effects or the asteroid. You're just watching a natural human drama of just people spending the last few days of their lives together.
Yeah, and it's kind of like
I remember one of our teachers in school actually broke it down where it's like you start off with Last Night. You know, it's like a realistic drama. And then you move on to Deep Impact, where it's like, okay, some special effect, heavy-handed stuff, okay, and then you get to fucking Armageddon, and it's just bombastic bullshit. Yeah. It's like there's like an escalation on like how you do movies.
Yeah.
You know?
No, like, and the whole idea is like the most heartfelt drama that wasn't special effects heavy came from Canada. I think that was the point he was trying to make about. It's a point he's making about Canadian cinema, like. If we don't have the money that Hollywood does, we have the heart that Hollywood does not. Which makes me feel proud.
Now, the problem is... Oh, yeah, no, it makes me proud as well, absolutely. Sorry. Oh, I was just going to say, the problem is with Deep Impact, I don't remember this fucking movie.
That's okay, because I do.
It's not... Yeah.
Michael, have you seen Deep Impact?
It's not quite...
I have seen it, but I would agree very much in the camp because it's not as notorious as Armageddon. I do very much think it's like the forgotten of the two movies.
The cast isn't quite The cast isn't quite as iconic, but the most iconic person in this movie is Morgan Freeman as the President of the United States, and Elijah Wood, who was not known for Lord of the Rings at the time. Lord of the Rings hadn't come out yet, so Elijah Wood was known for Flipper up in that point, and that little role he had in Back to the Future Part 2. It has Elijah Wood, Morgan Freeman, Téa Leoni, and that's... Oh, Jon Favreau and an unknown Jon Favreau is in it as one of the astronauts. And
oh, wow.
Robert Duvall is the commander of the ship that goes to stop the asteroid. So the plot, in terms of the realism, the realism is a lot more like open-ended. The movie opens with student astronomers discovering a comet that could hit Earth, and they actually... they discover that the comet is like 2 years away, and then like a year before the comet is about to hit, Téa Leoni is an investigative reporter who there's a bit in this scene where you actually kind of forget it's a disaster movie, and it feels like a Tom Clancy wannabe because she's investigating the resignation of the Secretary of Defense, which is right out of a Jack Ryan piece. And then when she I don't know how while she's investigating and doing the story, she stumbles upon an acronym ELE, and he thinks it's a woman that the Secretary of Defense, played by James Cromwell, might I add, had an affair with. But it turns out that ELE is an acronym for Extinction Level Event, and because she discovers a simple acronym that anyone could have Googled, that means the President of the United States has to break to the world. I've known this for a year, but I'm telling the world now, a comet is coming, and we have a plan to stop it, but in case that plan fails, we also have a backup plan to preserve our way of life. So the scenario, like, instead of depending on... By the way, they send up a crew to stop the asteroid, and instead of taking oil drillers and training them to be astronauts, they train the astronauts to fucking drill. No, seriously, they tell the astronauts, here's the drill and plant bombs. The end. So they took Ben Affleck's advice.
They took Ben Affleck's advice, yeah. So, because Ben Affleck literally approached Michael Bay on the set of Armageddon, was like, wouldn't it make sense if it's the other way around, if we just train astronauts to be oil drillers? And Michael Bay's response was literally, shut the fuck up.
Yeah. Go do your job, Ben.
That was a very infamous YouTube clip for a while. I remember that.
Where Ben Affleck is like, well, I told Michael, wouldn't it be easier to just Like, how
Yeah,
hard can it be?
it
You
was
just
it was from
point
the
and you drill.
it was from the DVD
Yeah.
commentary, but
Yeah,
he did
yeah. Michael Bay signed off on that being in the commentary.
So, and then the whole and then one of the thing I'd like to point out, Cody, is remember all those like character tropes that are cliche for disaster movies. None of those tropes are in here. You don't have the neglectful father.
That's true.
You don't
Yeah.
have the wash up loser. You just have a smart high school kid who discovered a comet, and they actually throw in a little subplot where he has to marry his high school girlfriend just so he can save his girlfriend's family and get them into the national and make them qualify for the national lottery that's going to save everyone, because there's a very real possibility that the space mission to blow up the comet may not go to plan. So the backup plan is dig some caves in the Appalachian Mountains and put 1 million people in the caves for 2 years until the dust cloud makes the atmosphere breathable again. But unfortunately, that's in case the comet does hit and destroys all life on Earth. So
Yeah.
that plot is actually the most focused on plot in the whole movie. The bit with the space team going up is actually almost a subplot, and there's really not much to it. You have the younger astronauts butt heads with the old astronauts, kind of like in Space Cowboys. Like Robert Duvall is like a veteran astronaut who's leading the mission, and the younger guys played by Jon Favreau and a bunch of other people I don't remember. Like, that was okay. The one part where I actually cared about those characters was when they understand that in order to blow up this comet and save the world, we have to kamikaze our ship into the comet and detonate our nukes inside the comet when our ship flies right through it. So
I don't remember any of this. That's so funny.
Before they actually do this, there's a scene where they get on the video camera on the ship and they say goodbye to all their families, and it's really touching. And in Armageddon, you have these little sub-disaster scenes where asteroid fragments destroy major cities. In Deep Impact, they blow the comet into two pieces, and one of the fragments actually hits Earth and destroys like most of the East Coast. Like the most famous scene is where the comet crashes into the Atlantic Ocean and it sends a colossal tidal wave that rips New York City to shreds and just destroys everything. And
yeah, that's the thing. I remember the vibe out of this film was like it was so like I will agree with you, Evan. There's definitely a lot more effort put into the script in terms of characterization and pacing and trying to create this realism. Like there's not a lot of action scenes. It's just more about strategy and strategy and how do you handle a certain colossal event like this. But then when you get to the last minute sort of tragedy where there is that huge wave coming towards New York, and then Taylor Leone and the love interest are kind of just there on the beach awaiting their demise.
That wasn't the love interest. That was her estranged father. Yeah, that plot.
Oh, sorry, father.
That subplot was kind of thrown in at the end.
The fact that the tidal wave was so unrealistic looking, as like the visual effects were not really that great. Had this movie be made today with this craft and the special effects we have today, I think I would have bought it a little bit more as like oh my god, this is such a tragic little event. But because not much happens in the film, and I mean, guys, I'm kind of the guy that, like, if I want to have a disaster movie, I do want to just turn off my brain and watch expendable people die at the hands of Mother Nature. Like, I don't care. I don't want to see a human drama because there's like this weird middle ground with Deep Impact where it's like, is it wanting to be like a Last Night or is it wanting to be like an Armageddon? It's trying to do both.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't think it works trying to do both at the same time. So I don't know. I respect it for being realistic, but I also don't think it's as memorable as the other ones. That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah. I think Deep Impact, you're right, Cody. Deep Impact has, it definitely is the more human of the two. Like, if you, Last Night I haven't seen Last Night, but based on what we've learned from it, it probably has the most human element to it. because it just focuses on people, and Deep Impact focuses on civilians as much as it focuses on the government and the astronauts.
Yeah.
Armageddon focuses on just the astronauts and the military. That's it. It doesn't. The human element barely exists. Like the everyman.
If you if you had to vote, Michael, which one would you prefer?
I'd probably say Armageddon just for the enjoyment factor I get out of watching it. Like, yeah, like I'm kind of with you on that. I don't think Deep Impact was particularly memorable. I don't think I've ever gone to revisit.
That's
it,
so
really.
interesting.
Didn't leave too deep of an impact on me. But yeah, I had fun watching it specifically because I watched it in the context where I was watching it with you guys and our friends group. So that's probably why I'd have to pick it.
Yeah, I liked it.
What about you, Evan?
In terms of its story and characters, Deep Impact is technically the better film, but Armageddon has the most fun factor, and that I will agree. Armageddon's
All right, well, it's unanimous.
Armageddon's more fun, but Deep Impact will make you feel more. But you
Okay, sure, fair enough. But it is definitely unanimous. Oh my God, we all Michael Bay for the win. Bay for the win. Yeah. This man wants to blow up the fucking Earth. So be it. Blow it up, bitch. Yeah. All right, so that was category 2. So I got 2 more categories for you guys, and then the 5th category. Oh my God, category 5. Let's just do a free for all, and I'd love to hear picks that you guys have if we don't touch upon with these next 2 categories.
Okay.
So the next category, I want to talk about earthquakes. So the only 2 earthquake movies that I want to talk about, and I need you guys to perhaps back me up on this, because if I claim that I'm actually a disaster movie fan, I'm kind of a fraud, because I haven't seen the classical disaster films like Earthquake from the 1970s and the Poseidon Adventure and the Towering Inferno. I haven't seen these movies, so I automatically am a fraud. I should have seen these.
I haven't seen. Okay, I haven't seen Poseidon Adventure, and I haven't seen any of these movies. I have, however, seen Poseidon, which is a remake of Poseidon Adventure.
Yes.
But
don't worry, we'll get to that one. We'll get to that one. But I haven't seen Earthquake. Have you guys? You
Earthquake? No, I haven't seen that.
It's like a big Hollywood, like I think the poster is like the Hollywood sign font, but it's like Earthquake, and it's like.
Oh wow!
Whole studded
Charlton
cast.
Heston.
Yeah, all bunch of people, all.
This looks
cast.
impressive.
Yeah,
this looks impressive.
This is like these are movies that like a certain individual that we'll talk about soon, Roland Emmerich.
Oh.
He's very influenced. He's very influenced by this genre or these set of movies from the 1970s. But I haven't seen any of these earthquake movies. But the 2 earthquake movies that I'll bring up, that if you guys have seen or not. Have you guys seen this 2004 TV movie on NBC called 10.5?
No, I haven't.
No.
Okay.
No, I don't even know what that is.
I will not waste your time with it, but basically
the titles.
But I will say that it is edited exactly like an episode of 24.
Oh wow.
Where there's like split screens of like people talking point of view. It's all handheld. There's a lot of snap zooms unnecessary snap zooms on like all the drama. It's like, oh my god, because the whole thing is just like the Los Angeles or the California fault line is faulty, and there's just earthquakes, and it's just a human drama. I think it's like a 4-part TV movie where it was like a super long thing, but I remember just thinking like, oh, okay, this has all the tropes I love just in like an episodic sort of facade.
I just want to, speaking of the San Andreas fault line, in 2015, the disaster genre kind of died for a number of years, but The Rock tried to bring it back in the last decade with San Andreas. I gotta be honest.
That's the other one. Yes, that's the other one I wanted to bring up.
Has anyone seen San Andreas?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, I the first time I knew about.
Wait, Michael. Hey, mind your manners, Mr. Mead. Has Michael seen it?
Michael, have you seen it?
San Andreas. This is circa 2015. I was watching like tons of movies because that's part of this like screening kind of subscription series. And so I definitely have seen it, but it's a blur. um, I yes, I can picture elements of it, and I can picture a few key scenes and stuff, but
Uh,
I'm not sure how much of it I'll actually
uh,
remember. Maybe when we get into it, I
um,
will.
Yeah.
But yeah, long answer. I have read it. Yes.
now I had
Not read it,
the
seen it.
thought I had was
I read the movie
yeah
novelization.
the thought I
I
had of this movie was ironically I flew the year this movie came out. I flew to LA on a vacation with my friend, and it was one of the movies available on my flight, and the person sitting in front of me was watching it, and I didn't watch it. The movies I watched were Foxcatcher and Fast and the Furious, and whatever Fast and the Furious movie was new at the time. I can't remember which one, quite honestly, but I watched Foxcatcher followed by whatever Fast and the Furious movie was out at the time. I think it was no,
Nice.
it was
That's a good variety. I've been watching an indie and a blockbuster.
now,
I like that.
but on my first ever trip to LA. But I saw San Andreas. I'm like, I'm about to fly to LA. I'd rather not watch a movie about LA getting destroyed before I go there.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight's movie selection on our airlines are films like Alive, United 93, United 93,
Flight Plan,
and Nonstop.
Snakes on a
Flight Plan.
Snakes on a plane.
Snakes on a plane.
Can you? That would be funny if like
just put all your passengers in a state of anxiety, like this.
and then one guy gets angry.
I remember watching San Andreas and thinking, oh my god, like all the tropes are so alive. Like The Rock, not so hot of a father, and he's part of a rescue team, and oh my ex-wife and daughter are in Los Angeles. I gotta go save them while everything is crumbling. It's really good special effects. I remember it being like very well done. I just remember kind of being expendable.
Yeah,
as a movie.
I do remember Paul Giamatti being in it.
That's right, he was.
And
yeah.
He's like a seismologist or something like that. But I just remember seeing him and thinking. I just remember I don't know how to describe it other than he was just Paul Giamatti-ing it up. I was just like, yeah, that guy's having fun doing this role.
I am the Rhino!
Yeah. Isn't he literally the guy who explains how the earthquake will happen? He literally says, the earth will literally crack. That trailer line.
Exposition.
I remember him having some really feisty exposition moment that seemed like he was chewing on the scenery, and it was kind of fun. But, yeah.
If you find that scene, send it to us. That'd be funny.
Yeah. I will.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like Los Angeles or California is sort of like the hot spot to center around earthquake movies. There's really not anywhere else.
Yeah.
Foreign filmmakers, are there no other fault lines in the world that you can make earthquake movies about? Like, why is it always California?
Yeah, I don't know. It's strange. Well, this category doesn't really shake my world. I can make puns too, goddammit, even if they don't land. All right, the next category. I'm talking some tsunamis or tidal waves or hurricanes. Just I need some big water. I need lots of water. I need lots of water. I love it.
Remember how I talked about Poseidon? Like, not Poseidon Adventure, Poseidon, the remake from 2000, I believe 7 or
2006.
2006.
Yeah.
I remember it starred Kurt Russell, Emmy Rossum, who was in another disaster movie that will probably come up tonight. And I just remember Kurt Russell's character all the tropes are there. Like, it's basically every trope on this glamorous ocean liner that capsizes after a tsunami hits it.
Actually, it's funny. I want to bring up two films simultaneously because they're both by the same director, actually, Wolfgang Peterson.
Wolfgang Peterson.
I want
Love that
to
guy.
I want to bring up The Perfect Storm and Poseidon at the same time.
Oh, nice.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't
yeah.
know what happened to this man. He did a lot of great films in the 80s and 90s, like Das Boot and the Never-Ending Story, In the Line of Fire,
Air Force One.
Outbreak, like Air Force One, just to name a few. And
Yeah, Outbreak is. Yeah.
I don't know what the fuck. I know exactly what happened to this man. He saw Titanic and said, "I need to do that every time," because The Perfect Storm is just. It's not as cynical as, like, say, Pearl Harbor. Speaking of Michael Bay, where it's like Pearl Harbor's clearly trying to ape off of the success of Titanic of being like a disaster, but like there's a romance surrounded around it.
A tragedy that is the backdrop to a personal drama.
Yes, thank you. Perfect Storm is kind of in the same vein, but it is also something based on a true story of like the Andrew Gale boat that went off into the Atlantic, and at the same time there were 3 different hurricanes all colliding, and that boat tragically got in the center of all of it. But the movie is so melodramatic, and it's so, like, I think our movie character Jack Sparrow said it best, is that, well, if there are no any survivors, then where do the stories come from?
That was a great line.
Because really, where does this movie? I don't know if you guys have seen it, but sorry, but like, they don't survive. So it's like, where does all the stuff that happens on the boat come from? And even the stuff that does happen, it just feels so overbearing. Like, even James Horner scored the film, which he does do a good job scoring it, but it does feel like it's trying to be very, like, you know, like Titanic, like there needs to be like this big score to it, but it's all so melodramatic, and everybody's just trying to like make it like this big thing. Like, there's literally a line that Mary Elizabeth, or no, what's her name? I'm forgetting her name. She's from The Abyss. The main woman from The Abyss. I can't remember her name. She's literally screaming to George Clooney and Mark Wahlberg through the intercom, "You're headed right for the middle of the monster." Like, verbatim.
I think I remember that scene. I've only seen this movie once a long time ago, and I barely remember it. But
have you seen this, Michael? Sorry.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, it's I don't know, it's melodramatic to me.
What's interesting about that movie is it was not his first role by any means, but I heard an interview with George Clooney himself where he was like, that was the first movie where people thought of me as a star.
Really?
Which is crazy. Because he said that he had just finished a contract working on ER, and he was terrified that they would not let him make the leap from TV to movies. He's like, and he's Oh Brother, Where Art Thou had just come out, and it's got a following now, but it was not a success at the time. And he was like, okay, this movie flopped. I just finished. I have not succeeded in my transition from TV to film. And then The Perfect Storm came out, and it was a commercial success. Maybe not a critical one, but it was a commercial success. And he was like, okay, well, that essentially saved my bacon. I can make movies now.
I didn't know that. Now, I have 2 questions for you, Michael. The first one, it regards Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? This is a little did you know. Did you know, Michael, that the soundtrack from Oh Brother, Where Art Thou was more commercially successful than the actual movie?
I feel like I've heard that. I am
also,
I am glad that you shared
not only that, did The Perfect Storm predate Batman and Robin? Because he was in that.
Batman and Robin was 97, but funny enough, The Perfect Storm was 2000.
Oh,
so
that makes sense.
Yeah, like
wow.
George Clooney's like career of like being a movie star in films didn't really start off on the best track, but there were some movies that I actually, funny enough, him and Mark Wahlberg and Ice Cube were in Three Kings.
Three Kings.
Yeah.
That was the year before, 99 or something.
Yeah, 99. So there's some movies that were. Oh, also another one, a personal favorite of mine, Out of Sight.
Out of Sight, yeah.
Steven Soderbergh, him and J-Lo. Oh, that's a George Clooney and J-Lo. That's a great movie. Really
Yeah.
underrated gem.
Yeah, I think The Perfect Storm and Oh Brother Where Art Thou, like what he was kind of saying in that interview was they were the first movies he was making without the safety net of like having a TV show
Yeah.
that he could go back to. So it was really like a test of his star power, and yeah,
I mean,
it seemed to
to his credit,
he seems to be doing okay.
he does a well, yeah, he definitely, yeah, he's a movie star now. He does a fine job in the film. I think everybody does a fine job of what they're given. It just all comes off so
Yeah.
kind of over the top and kind of cheesy. And that's the thing about Wolfgang
Right.
Peterson is that kind of carries out to Poseidon, where yep, it's the same kind of concept as the original The Poseidon Adventure, where a tidal wave hits a cruise ship and it capsizes, and it's all the survivors trying to get out. I'm trying to remember this one line that made me burst out laughing from how poorly written it was. It was Kurt Russell saying like something along the lines of like, "It's a pressure valve. It explodes if there's a lot of pressure," or something like that. Like it was just like duh. Like if you look in the dictionary in redundant, does it say redundant?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's another kind of cheese fest, and the special effects are not really that. It feels very special effect driven too.
Right.
Like not a lot of substance in Poseidon at all, and it's kind of boring. It's very boring, and he hasn't made a film since Wolfgang Peterson.
Wow. I completely forgot that.
Have you seen?
I completely forgot that Wolfgang Peterson directed Poseidon.
Yeah.
You were saying, Michael?
Have you seen the Poseidon Adventure? Have you seen the original? Because I was hoping to touch on that a little
can
bit.
talk
I
about
haven't
it. I
actually,
haven't
and that's
seen
what I
it.
mean. I am a fraud,
Okay, cool.
so I want you to take away, please. I need
Okay.
some sort of legitimacy to this natural disaster podcast, and yet I
Sure.
haven't seen the originals.
So I just watched it like quite recently, in preparation for what we're doing, because I noticed it was on Disney. I noticed it was on Disney Plus.
Oh, okay.
And the Poseidon Adventure really, really engaged me. I really liked it. I thought, and I think it's from 72, so it's like almost 50 years old at this point. I think it really does serve as like the template for like tons of disaster movies that came after it. There's like so many kind of recognizable sort of stock characters in this movie. There's like the precocious little kid who has like the plan, and then there's like all these like dueling like deckhands and like captains with like kind of different agendas, and there's like the kind of bullheaded protagonist and stuff like that. And like it is actually just a really fun movie. And one thing that's kind of a really funny standout about the movie is Leslie Nielsen is in it. And
What?
it's well, here's the thing. It's 8 years before Airplane came out. So he's not playing it comedically. Like he's playing it like totally straight.
Yep.
He's like
Yeah, he's done that actually in the 1950s. He was in Forbidden Planet, where he plays it completely straight. It's like a science fiction from the 50s. He plays it 100% straight.
Yeah. So he's literally just there as like a crew guy, and I'm observing him for like a few minutes, and I'm like, oh, he's not making any jokes. He's just this is just him.
There's no deadpan stupidity. Damn it.
I think he was. I think I've heard before that he was hired for Airplane, kind of on the strength of his delivery as a straight man.
Yeah.
But the Poseidon Adventure is worth checking out. You know how sometimes like movies from another era that I feel like acting has evolved a lot since then.
Yeah.
Like a lot of old kind of movie stars kind of speak with that kind of like radio kind of voice where like they just deliver their lines in like a very kind of like where do you get off talking to me like that? Like that kind of weird sort of like
It's kind of speedy.
Yeah. So a lot of the dialogue is delivered like that, but which might seem weird kind of painted onto like a disaster movie today, but it's like a thoroughly engaging movie. I really liked it, and I can see how the success of something like that might have like helped propel a genre.
That's what I expect it to be.
Yeah. There's one like I don't know if you'd say it's ahead of its time or what, but there's one like really kind of poignant moment where they're like rescuing people off the boat, and this woman is like she doesn't want to be rescued. She's like she wants to die. She's like, no, no, leave me here, leave me here. And it's like it's a pretty like emotional moment because Gene Hackman is trying to convince her like, no, like you have something to live for. And she's like, well, what do I have to live for? And he's like, life. That's what you have to live for. Life is up there. Life is beautiful. And it's like, it might sound a little melodramatic when I say it like that, but it is actually quite a beautiful moment.
Oh, wow, okay.
And so, like, I really liked the movie.
Nice.
I do recommend that.
Does Fergie make a cameo in it and dies? Because that's what happens in Poseidon, the remake.
I don't
Fergie makes a cameo and dies.
I don't remember a thing about the Poseidon remake, clearly, because I don't remember.
Well, now that I've seen this movie, like I don't feel compelled to ever see a remake of it. Like
I should have
I
should just watch these. I don't understand. I'm so I think maybe they just weren't as available before streaming. Really, like it just
probably.
Yeah, it was
probably.
All right, well, there are two other films that are in this category of tidal wave tsunami films that I want to bring your attention to. They're actually two independent films. You guys have probably seen one of them. Have you seen either The Impossible or The Wave?
I've seen neither of them, but I do know.
Yeah,
Michael, you're gonna love me for this. The Impossible is what gave Tom Holland his movie career. Correct me if I'm wrong, right?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, he's the kid
Russell
in that
brothers saw
yeah.
The Impossible and they said, "That's Spider-Man."
I believe that the director of that movie's gone on to direct some pretty big
yes.
films too.
J.A. Bornia went on to do like The Orphanage, A Monster Calls, and Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom.
Now, The Impossible is based on it's based on a disaster that really happened.
Yes, yeah. The Haiti. It's the Haiti disaster. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Oh, right.
Is it? Is it actually? I don't know. I don't want to.
Is it the Haiti disaster, or is it the disaster, or is it that tsunami in the Philippines?
Oh, the Indian Ocean tsunami.
Haiti is.
I stand corrected.
Haiti is in the Caribbean.
Okay. No. The Impossible, actually, it is 100% like a human drama, and it does follow more of like the aftermath in the film of like the tragedy, and you follow Ewan McGregor and Naomi Watts and them trying to find their kids in the aftermath. Very, very well done. I wouldn't say it's like a spectacle, eat popcorn, watch a kind of dumb movie. It's not like that at all. But it's definitely an honorable mentioning, and same can be said about The Wave. It's a Norwegian film from 2015 where same kind of idea where there's a lot of like build up in this movie of like they know that like this dam is about to burst and the water pressure around this little small town surrounded by this dam, it's gonna burst any moment. And there's all these warning signs, and they're kind of shrugging it off, saying like, it's okay, it'll be fine. But once it happens, because of that buildup, there's a lot of like really impactful moments, and it does follow like the aftermath a lot, and it's very well done actually. It's I'd say those are the two films that they're not. Like I said, I don't want to repeat myself. They're not about the spectacle. They're more about the human drama, but. They're just worth mentioning since they're in the same category as like a natural disaster film, but they're not as tropey as the ones we'll be talking about more. All right, well, I guess that closes off the category 4. Now let's just jump into category 5 and let's just shoot the shit about other shit that we haven't even mentioned yet. So, Michael, have you got a movie for us that I'll be the judge on whether or not it's a natural disaster film?
Sure. I'm not sure if you've seen this. I didn't even know this was a movie until this week, but I just discovered a movie in my research called Firestorm from 1998.
Oh, okay. The only thing I know about this film, is that 20th Century Fox was banking on this film at the time more than Titanic. To make it a success.
Oh, wow.
And Firestorm came out a month after Titanic's release. So Titanic was 97, Firestorm was 98 in January. Fuck you, it's January. Red Letter Media reference. And this movie made zip in the box office. It didn't make any money at all. In fact, I think actually James Cameron was actually the one. Like, I think because his wife is in Titanic, Susie Amos, I think that's her name. She plays Rose's granddaughter in the future. She's in the film as well.
Right.
And I think because she stumbled on the set of Titanic, that's how she got the job to be in this movie. And I've seen the trailer. It has the funniest poster I've ever seen, and I'm going to show it on the screen here because the guy has the most dumbfounded, dumb expression on his face.
Yeah.
But I don't know what it is. All I know is that it's a forest fire film. That's all I know.
To me, this was like what not to do when creating one of these disaster movies. Because I told you before that I really like, when a cast is strong in a movie. And what's kind of a funny pattern or sort of similarity with disaster movies is they don't need a human villain.
They don't.
Like, survival is the obstacle, right? And it's kind of, sometimes there's people who have clashing ideologies or plans or how to survive or whatever. You do not need someone intentionally causing problems, and that's what this movie decides to do.
I'm going to be talking about that aspect more in other films I'll bring up, but carry on.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
But this movie literally just inserts a human villain kind of as a twist in the third act, and they give him some of the most ridiculously overwritten lines of dialogue. But okay, spoiler for a 23-year-old movie that no one's
just
ever seen.
Spoil it. I don't care. Just do it. Go for it.
There's a part where the kind of quote unquote bad guy of the movie is locking people in the room, and they say to him like, "What are you doing? What are you doing, you son of a bitch? What are you doing?" And he just turns around. You can practically see his mustache twirling, but he's like, "I'm killing you!"
What?
It's just such a weird melodramatic choice, and there's so many. I'm actually surprised that this movie is not more like kind of memed or like made fun of in the public consciousness, because there's so many lines of dialogue in this movie that are just way overwritten, and it's hysterical to watch. I recommend you guys watch this just to have fun with it, just have a few drinks and make fun of it. But it is such a ridiculous movie, and the movie's supposed to be about fire, and there's like a huge, disarmingly long chunk of the movie where they just forget about the fires, and there's just like stupid shit in it, like a motorcycle chase and like a fist fight, and I'm like watching it, and I'm like,
it seems like this seems like this film is trying to be a disaster film, but it keeps trying to steer away and just make it just a normal action film.
Yeah, which I thought was a very strange choice. And there was a couple minutes where because I'm watching it on my computer, and something popped up on the screen, and I was just like replying to emails and shit. I fully forgot this movie was on in the background. Like, it was that uninteresting. And then I zeroed back in, and I started listening to the dialogue and stuff again, and I'm like, this is not how you do this. You you didn't need it. This genre didn't need this movie.
Yeah.
This movie had a $19 million budget, and it only made back $8 million. Oh.
There was something on the IMDb page. I'm not sure if it's just me, but it made me laugh. Howie Long is the name of the actor in this movie. For some reason, in the trivia section of this movie, I'm just going to read this verbatim. The film premiered in U.S. theaters on January 9th, 1998.
Yep.
3 days after Howie Long's 38th birthday. To me, an adult man's birthday being 3 days apart from the release of a movie is not a special piece of trivia that needs to be included.
Wow.
So there's
like, is there
basically there's nothing special about this film whatsoever.
They could think of so few things to say about this movie.
Oh my god. No, I just know about it. I haven't seen it. I don't want to see it because it looks kind of trashy and stupid.
Yeah. It's fair if you don't want to see it. I'd never force anyone to see this. You might get a laugh out of it, though. That's all I'm saying to us and the viewers.
Speaking of shoehorned in villains. I'll give it to you in a second, Evan. But I do know, Evan, that you've seen this film. But speaking of villains, that there should not be man versus man in a man versus nature movie. Have you guys actually, Michael? Have you seen Vertical Limit?
Um, this sounds so familiar. Yeah.
So it's Chris O'Donnell, the guy who played Robin in the Schumacher Batman movies.
Yeah.
Bill Paxton's in it. Bill Paxton plays the one-dimensional villain, and
Okay.
the whole thing is that like they're all mountain climbers, and Robin,
Yeah.
I think Robin Tooney, I think that's her name. She was in The Craft. I think that's her name. Correct me if I'm wrong. Robin something. She's the sister of Chris O'Donnell. Her and a team of other people and Bill Paxton go up into the mountain, and then there's an avalanche, and they all get trapped within the gorge. And
Yeah.
Chris O'Donnell and also Scott Glenn, who plays like a native guy in the movie, and they all try to go rescue this team that's buried in the snow. And
Tamir,
the whole time,
Tamir Morrison's
Yep.
in it too, who plays Boba Fett in The Mandalorian, and Jango
Yep,
and
yeah,
Jango
he's in
Fett
it,
in
and-
Attack of the Clones, respectively.
and also Mads Mikkelsen is in it too.
I forgot
Or
about that.
Sorry,
Oh, wow.
No, sorry, not Mads Mikkelsen. Sorry, Ben Mendelsohn. Sorry, I had Rogue One in my brain, and I was getting the two actors
Oh.
mixed up. Yeah, Ben Mendelsohn is in it too.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, the whole time you're thinking, okay, Bill Paxton is clearly like the rich climber that he came back from, like, you know, a previous climbing experience that didn't go well, where he was the only survivor, and he killed the wife of Scott Glenn's wife on this previous travel by using this like insulin, or not insulin, it's like almost it's like a vaccine shot where like you can survive like hypothermia up there. He took it all for himself because he's the rich evil man, and he's gonna do it all over again in this other tragedy. And that's the problem with the film, is that there's only a few avalanches in the film, and they're pretty well done. Like, the film is actually directed by Martin Campbell, who did GoldenEye and Casino Royale.
Seriously? Wow.
So yeah, two of like one of the best Bond films. And yeah, there's some pretty good action scenes in the film. There's some solid acting. Actually, to where credit is due, there's some pretty effective moments in the film. But that Bill Paxton stuff is just so focused on sometime in the film, and there's a lot of like, I don't know. There's one part where, like, actually when they were climbing up and the storm was starting to get a little heavy, that they're all like, "We need to go back. I'm turning back. Goodbye, Bill Paxton." And little Bill Paxton turns into the camera, and in this like tight, awkward close up, and he's wearing like a visor, glasses. He's like, "Fuck you!" And then just cuts to the next shot. It's so funny. It's so funny. What did you think about this one, Evan?
I've only seen it once a long time ago. I remember there's a scene where they get up so high that they chop her up to a part of the mountain. And by the way, just for the sake of trivia, the mountain they're climbing is K2, one of the deadliest mountains in the Himalayas. Like,
That's true.
There's
Yeah.
Mount Everest,
Yep.
and then there's Mount K2, which apparently has a reputation for killing a lot of the climbers that try to conquer it. So there's a scene where the helicopter is actually losing its ability to stay aloft because they're so high up, and the thinner the air gets, the harder it is for the chopper to stay stable. And there's also a storm, and there's like one scene where like one of the women is like getting like dangerously close to the rotor blades, getting chopped to shreds. She almost breaks her finger, and then there's a scene where I think Chris O'Donnell is like talking to her, and like her finger's broken, and they're like making small talk, and then he snaps the finger back into place, and she's like, "Yeah!"
Yeah, the whole scene was kind of like okay, I'll adjust it on 3. 1, and then crack. You crack on 1. It was kind of like that kind of scene where just kind of distract her while you do this little adjustment to her finger. Yeah. There are there's a lot of effective moments in the film, but it's it's just kind of cheesy and a lot of like there's so much cheese with Bill Paxton. I hate that subplot in the film. I'm watching it going like with a couple little tweaks, you can kind of fix his character where you can scrap all that like, oh, history is repeating itself. He's just trying to take all of the medicine for himself. If he was just like a very panicked person and he's trapped and he's just trying to like show some humanity at first, but then it's just the idea that like I'm gonna suffocate down here, I'm gonna die of hypothermia, and it just changes his ways. Like I can buy that, but the fact that like he's always been like set up to be like this asshole rich guy that's just gonna take everything for himself is just so Hollywood and such just tacked on bullshit. Yeah, it's yeah, it's okay, it's watchable. Despite what I said. What do you have, Evan? Okay, do you have a movie, Evan?
I do, yeah. We didn't talk about Roland Emmerich enough. There are 2 movies that I hope we talk about.
Well, actually, how about we save those 2 for last?
Oh, okay.
Because I feel like those are the juggernauts. How about we save those 2 for last? Do you have any other ones?
Other disaster movies. Let me think about this for a second.
If you can't think of one, I have one that I know you and I have talked about in the past.
Oh, which one is that?
Let's talk about The Core.
Hey, Mom, can we watch Armageddon? We have Armageddon at home. Armageddon at home. The Core.
It's The Core. Yes. Oh my God, The Core. You know what, Michael? Wait, have you seen The Core, Michael?
I don't think I have. I remember it coming out, and I sort of know what it is, but I don't think I've ever seen it.
Okay, see, knowing that you, and actually, both of you, Evan and Michael, you guys are both fans of the MCU. The Core kind of has a sort of a preemptive formula that the MCU has, where it's like, it's taking itself seriously, but there's a lot of humor in it. The problem is with The Core is that like the humor doesn't quite land, but you'll probably get a kick out of it of them trying to make it land.
It feels like the people who made The Core watched Armageddon a few times too many and were like, you know what? Let's try to make an Armageddon-like disaster movie where we'll have the jokes, we'll have the humor, we'll have a cast. Except we'll take it even more seriously than Armageddon did. Because the problem with The Core is that the disaster is too serious. Like, Armageddon is a ridiculous scenario where an asteroid is coming to destroy the Earth. The core of the Earth stops spinning. What's funny about that? What's ludicrous about that? The core stopping spinning is actually something that could potentially happen. And I mean, it's unlikely, but it could still happen. And there's even one scene where they're explaining, where Stanley Tucci is like the big intellectual genius that they bring on the journey to explain how the core's how the core's not spinning will destroy the Earth. They basically said that the Earth has an electromagnetic field that the core's rotation keeps intact. Now that the core stops spinning, that field is going to collapse. And he basically uses like a piece of fruit with a flamethrower to prove the point of what will happen to the planet once that field collapses. And there is not a trace of a joke. It's a funny scene, but he's not joking. Like, he's being serious. It's like,
that's what I mean. That's like the seriousness is kind of like blanketing itself over the humor, and then sometimes the humor is in places where it shouldn't be funny. It's a very strange tone, this film. Like it is a guilty pleasure of mine.
But
I watch this,
you know
like,
what?
Every now and then.
Do you remember the scene where they get Hilary Swank and Bruce Greenwood, who are astronauts, because they have the object. So you're thinking, how the fuck are they going? If the core of the Earth stops spinning, how are they gonna get it to start again? Well, they have a solution. They're gonna invent a spaceship that can go underground. No, I'm not kidding about this. They invent a spaceship that goes underground, and they get NASA astronauts to pilot this ship. But only after 2 of them are responsible for crashing the space shuttle. Look, and by the way, that in of itself is they're trying to prove a point that, you know, the reason why they almost crashed the space shuttle is because with the Earth's magnetic field being screwed up, it actually causes their coordinates to be miscalculated when they're re-entering the atmosphere. And they almost crash the shuttle into downtown Los Angeles. And there's a scene where, like, Bruce Greenwood is like, Commander, those buildings are getting pretty close. And then they get an emergency maneuver, and then they land in the LA River. But before that, the shuttle flies over Dodger Stadium, and everyone's like, "What the hell?" Like it's a bizarre scene.
I know Michael's probably like, what the fuck is this movie? I have no idea. Like, one minute we're in space and then we're in the world. So
also,
it's a lot to digest. But it's basically they need to go to the center of the Earth to restart the rotation of the planet's core. And they have to get there in a ship that can withstand the pressure and the heat of down there. And do you want to know the name of the substance of the type of rock that they need to like shell themselves in the ship? Unobtainium. James Cameron, take a few notes.
Yeah.
Because that's the fucking rock that they were trying to like possess in Avatar, the humans.
Yeah.
When you asked me to guess, I was literally gonna crack that joke. Is that actually what it's called? In the
No,
movie?
it's called
It is. It's true. It's called unobtainium. I'm not kidding. It's called. I remember my mom picked up on that when she saw Avatar, because her and I we saw the core in the theater years ago, and we've seen it now and then on TV. And when she saw Avatar, she's like, "Wait a minute, unobtainium? That's the core."
That's funny. Does that have any like? I know that's been like memed over the years, but does that have any actual like relevance to real science? Is that like a real thing?
I don't know.
I think it's it's like unobtainium. I think, it's either a literary like device that writers use when they can't think of something to name their substance. But unobtainium, I think, is like I don't quote me on this, but I think unobtainium is like a scientific term for like a mystery element. Like if there's an element that hasn't been discovered yet, then they just the scientific board just calls it unobtainium until they can figure out an actual name for it.
There's a scene in this movie that just makes me laugh in terms of like how you do a setup and a payoff in terms of a character, because all they literally do within the one scene to the next is do the setup and then the payoff, where you establish there's one guy on the team who's like the friend of Aaron Eckhart, who's like the main character of the movie. His friend is like a French guy, forgetting his name and the actor's name. And I remember he was the villain in the first Bad Boys. He was like saying, to come down here.
Like a picture.
He's like, to come down here to save 6-7 billion people, that's nothing to me. I'm just trying to save my wife and my three children, or my 2 children. I just want to know if I'm smart enough to be down here to save 3 people. And then the next scene, spoilers, sorry, he dies because one of the compartments on the ship gets penetrated by some crystal, and then he gets trapped in there, and then they had to like separate that compartment because like one damaged compartment can like damage the whole ship, so they had to make a sacrifice. Hilary Swank actually had to make that call and not open the doors and save him, so she had to sacrifice him, which really pissed off Aaron Eckhart. And it's so over the top, him lashing out to her, saying like, I was 2 inches from him and you didn't open the door. Like, just picture him as Harvey Dent times 11, like turn up to 11 of him just screaming the say it just times 10. I'm not kidding. It's him. It's embarrassing how over the top he is in this scene, just chewing her out. And he's like, I don't care what you say. And she's like, he died so we could save our mission. He's like, oh yeah, the mission of saving the world, right? He's like, not the whole world, just the 3 of them. And then he just he stays quiet, and then he walks away. And I'm like, we just had a scene with that. It's like, why don't you let that like linger with us a bit?
Yeah.
It's almost like they had that scene, kill him off, and then have the death scene and have that payoff, and then that's it. And then they moved on. Literally, the next scene, they forgive each other.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. That's it.
Okay. Now
it's a scene. It's a scene in this movie that really stands out to me in terms of writing, that it just bothers me.
There is one thing that There's one like okay, so one of the things that the reason why Hollywood got into a trend of disaster movies in the '90s and early and mid 2000s was because they were looking to scare audiences with like disastrous scenes. Like scenes where you have in Armageddon, like you have scenes where New York gets bombarded by asteroids, and you got people screaming and famous landmarks being destroyed all over the place. Well, in you're probably thinking, if the core is this type of movie, what kind of scenes can we get out of such a weird movie? You'd be surprised. There's a scene where, because the Earth electromagnetic field is collapsing, that means we have crazy lightning storms that can destroy things. And like no, like if lightning strikes, they'll actually like rip apart like sit buildings. And case in point, they go to Rome. That scene was a little hokey, but the scene that actually made me feel like actually generally creeped out. There's a scene where they establish later in the movie, hey, oh, and by the way, because uh the Earth's magnetic field is collapsing, that means holes in the ozone layer and lethal radiation from the sun can actually penetrate the Earth's magnetic field. And there's a hole right by San Francisco. And what happens is there's a scene where a deadly ray of sunlight actually passes over the Golden Gate Bridge, and it's so hot that it boils the seawater, and it's a little cheesy to show whales just going belly up and floating to the surface. But once it gets to the Golden Gate Bridge, the drivers are stopped in their cars, and the heat is so hot it turns the tires to goo, and it actually causes the Golden Gate Bridge to collapse because it's so hot. And then they cut away from that, and they say, oh, they cut to a news report a second later, San Francisco is in ruins. It's like, I would have liked to have seen the rest of that disaster play out. It was still terrifying to see, like, people like slowly their cars slowly melt and catch fire on the Golden Gate Bridge. But yeah,
the effect, even the effects in this movie, like in the one you just said, Evan, like where Rome, like the Colosseum gets hit by lightning, the visual effects are not good, and it ages. It looks like a TV movie, and it's like, wow, how the hell did like a major movie studio produce this? And like it's there's even a scene, because it does remind me of Armageddon, where it's like no matter, like, just pick a random spot in the world and just have like some disaster happen. There's even like a bird scene where all the birds get all like crazy and confused. It's like clearly a Hitchcock reference.
Yeah.
Where they're all just flying and dying all over the place because of the rays. They're all confused with that. It's a very weird jumble of a variety of disastrous moments, but like it's all centered around this mission to get to the planet's core.
The reason why the birds go crazy is because birds rely on electromagnetism to navigate, and with the Earth's electromagnetic field being screwed up, the birds lose their sense of navigation. And another clue that shows the core stops spinning is the movie opens with a random ass fundraiser where everyone at this fundraiser has a pacemaker, and then you cut to something similar to, oh god, it reminded me of a horrible movie that we have to talk about that qualifies as a disaster movie, but I'm getting ahead of myself. The scene where, because pacemakers can get screwed up by electromagnetism, an electromagnetic pulse shoots through like this area in Boston where this fundraiser is, that everyone has a pacemaker, and a bunch of people just drop dead. And it's like, okay, why'd they die? Oh, they all had pacemakers. Well, how did they die with how their pacemakers short out? Oh, and there was an electromagnetic charge or something. So yeah,
it's like Aaron Eckhart is literally just a high school teacher, and he just figures it out in like 30 seconds.
Yeah, and and suddenly he's qualified to go on the giant ship to save the world. That's like dragging an oil driller onto the space shuttle.
Hey, Evan, you are so right. You hit the nail. You hit it right on the head of that. Like, there's literally a scene where they draw straws on who's gonna sacrifice themselves
again. But
just like Armageddon,
there's a key difference between that. There's a key difference between Armageddon and the core. You're probably wondering, okay, if a disaster like this was going to happen and destroy the world, how the heck could the media keep that a secret? They get this random hacker dude to basically hack every news station and
Oh
internet
yeah.
site in the world to prevent media
Do you remember?
leaks.
Do you remember DJ Quills, Michael?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, DJ Quills is in this movie. He plays like the hacker guy. He's like a crazy computer whiz guy that literally like keeps the whole like world suppressed of like the knowledge of like the fact that like the world might end in about a year. Like he's actually the
Right.
most enjoyable part of the movie.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to check this out just on this recommendation alone.
You have to.
see it.
I do recommend this to people. It's a.
Yeah.
I mean, when you have a scene where, like, this is the last point that I'll make about this movie, then we'll move on. When you have a scene where they're collecting everybody around the world to help build this ship in 3 months, like millions of people, you got like the hacker guy, like their whole big plan, what they're gonna say. Like when you announce this people to everybody, you don't want to end like you want to say up straight away, here's the situation. No. Aaron Eckhart sits down and he goes, wow, I feel like I won the Nobel Prize. And there's literally like a point in the movie where they're trying to be like, oh, like no one laughs, but like everybody doesn't laugh, but that's the point. But like, why would you still have that joke in the movie? That's what I mean. It's a very confused film, but it's so fascinating.
And then at the end of the movie, the hacker dude just leaks everything after the disaster is averted. It's like, hey, did you know the world was going to end like a few months ago, but we saved it? Which kind of defeats the purpose of, a leak. But so his stuff could have been written off as a dumb conspiracy theory, but yeah, so I think that's the joke though. Okay, so
well, wait, before we move on to Mr. Emmerich's two end of the world juggernauts, do you guys have any other ones?
I thought of
bring
one.
up?
The pacemaker scene where a bunch of people just drop dead reminded me.
Oh yeah. What was
a god awful? Can we be the judge if this qualifies as a disaster film? Michael, Cody, I think there was a happening of some kind. There was an event happening.
Oh my god.
Does it?
I don't know. That's a great one to bring up. It's like an enigma of like, what the hell kind of disaster? It's a
nature disaster movie.
Wow.
The trees emit a pheromone that causes people to commit suicide. If Roland Emmerich directed this, we'd be saying, yeah, that's a disaster movie. But because it's M. Night Shyamalan, he has to make it about people. But this is the thing. You can't see the disaster. You can see the results of the disaster. You can't see the disaster. You actually, you know what? You can. You see the trees blowing on people. Like, what the hell?
I don't know. Yeah, that's a strange one.
Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah, that's a hard call to make.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's a very bold choice. I don't know. How about this? Can we save that for an M. Night Shyamalan episode on the podcast? Okay. Yeah. How about, because I would love to talk about M. Night Shyamalan. I got a lot of love-hate I got a lot of love-hate relationships with him.
There's also another movie. Apparently, he released a movie recently called Old, and that apparently has a disaster. No, that's a supernatural. Never mind. That's not a disaster movie. That's a supernatural.
I would actually say more psychological, because I've seen Old. I just watched it like a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, nice. Was it good?
Old? Oh, no. No, Old is not good. But why don't we but we'll save that for another topic. But Michael, do you have any ones or?
Nothing I can think of. I just recently watched one of the ones we're going to talk about next.
All right, well, I guess that takes us to both The Day After Tomorrow and 2012.
Okay.
I think it's very fitting to end off this podcast with these two, because like in terms of categories, oh my god, you got it all, gentlemen.
Yeah.
You got this guy that just has a fetish of fucking up this world.
Okay, so
Aliens, you got whether it's Independence Day or Godzilla or these two films, this guy just loves to get off on watching the world get. Well, Stargate takes place on another like world, I guess.
Yeah.
But fucking up this world, he just gets off on that.
Yeah.
Watching national landmarks. I think Roland Emmerich might be the guy that's perfected modern day contemporary disaster films.
I would say
'Cause
so.
This guy, I think Bob's Big Book of Cliches is a Bible. It sits right next to him when he sleeps at night. He just digs up that book every night because his movies are so cliched and so filled with tonal shifts where am I supposed to be laughing? Am I supposed to be on the edge of my seat? Am I supposed to be like feeling this intensity? Like he's trying to be like Spielberg. He's trying to be like, have some commentary as well. It's so fucking fascinating. To me.
Michael, no, so Roland Emmerich to me is like, Michael Bay's less talented brother who is less trained, who doesn't use as much explosives. Except his movies are somewhat smarter than Michael Bay's. I will say that. But
can I tell you guys something?
What?
Can I tell you guys something? So it's kind of a weird story. I hate to get off topic, but it's a cool story that you guys will like. So after Siskel and Ebert did their long running show, and then the show became Richard Roper and Roger Ebert centered. Ebert and Roper, and then after Roger Ebert had to leave because of health problems and all that, and they had to retire that, the show became At the Movies with A.O. Scott and Michael Phillips, these two other critics. And they hosted this show occasionally on cable TV, but it was mostly online at the time. And I remember in 2009 when I was watching like a lot of Siskel and Ebert on their site, and it was also showing tons of At the Movies with A.O. Scott and Michael Phillips, they always had this like Q&A, like write to us and we'll like answer your question and all that. So at this time when like Transformers Revenge of the Fallen in 2012 were kind of the hot of the town in 2009, I said, I'm going to ask them a question. I'm going to go, who do you think is the better director, Roland Emmerich or Michael Bay? And it was so cool. They actually like said, here's another question from Cody MacDonald from Windsor, Ontario.
Nice.
He said, they're like, despite their nasty criticism, who's a better director, Roland Emmerich or Michael Bay? And one of them was like, wow, this sounds like a final exam question on a film study class. and funny enough, it was actually split down the middle. One, I think it was A.O. Scott. He said he prefers Roland Emmerich, and Michael Phillips says he prefers Michael Bay.
Oh wow.
Huh. Okay.
A.O. Scott said because he seems like he's not taking himself as seriously as Michael Bay. And I think Michael Phillips just sort of like the aesthetic of Michael Bay films, which I'm like, okay, they both have pretty fair points.
Yeah.
But if I had to compare, I would probably go with Roland Emmerich because I don't find the indulgent, aggressive annoyance that Michael Bay puts in his movies a lot prevalent in Roland Emmerich films.
Yeah.
Because with The Day After Tomorrow, let's go into The Day After Tomorrow.
So
It's his most sincere film in terms of him trying to express sort of like commentary about global warming, and apparently, and this is obviously around the time where An Inconvenient Truth was the talk of the town, and like I mean even today, global warming is like reality. Hello,
I believe
look outside.
I believe the politically correct term is climate change. Global warming's outdated. But I'm just kidding.
Oh, get your Simpsons referencing over at So to Speak. What the fuck is this?
But yeah, so
no, but I find that it's his most sincere of him trying to like say this could happen, but at the same time you're wanting us to enjoy the disaster at the same time. So I'm like, what are you trying to say with this film?
he's trying to. Okay,
Yeah.
well. You want to talk about the tropes you highlighted? You've got the Dennis Quaid is an irresponsible father to Jake Gyllenhaal, which, by the way, Dennis Quaid does not. Jake Gyllenhaal is supposed to play a 17-year-old. He is not.
He
like
looks like they're 10. They look like they're 10 years apart from each other.
Yeah. Like, I do not buy that Jake Gyllenhaal and Emmy Rossum are 17. I don't. Another thing, oh, by the way, so they have the irresponsible dad trope. they have the he's a maverick in his career trope where no one believes his crazy theories except he has tons of credibility and still no one believes him. They also have an artificial villain where the vice president of the United States ignores all his evacuation recommendations, and then half of the United States gets trapped in a global superstorm that
Did you notice that the vice president suspiciously resembles Dick Cheney?
Yeah. By the way, he's played
some
most of The Day After Tomorrow was actually filmed in Montreal, and the vice president.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, the vice president is played by a Canadian documentarian named Kenneth Walsh.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, fun fact. I was gonna bring this up in the chat anyways. According to IMDb, The Day After Tomorrow is the highest grossing movie to ever be shot on Canadian soil.
Whoa.
That's pretty cool.
That
You
is
think
neat.
it would be
Wow.
like one of the X-Men movies because those were shot in Montreal too.
Yeah.
That much is true. I don't know if anything has passed it in the years since, but that was on IMDb when I checked this out.
That statistic might be outdated when you adjust for inflation, but anyway, so back to the movie.
Yeah, that's true.
So
this movie has it all. You got hail, you got tornadoes, you got tsunamis, and then that freezes over to an ice age blizzard. Like, it has it all.
Also, I think this movie. Okay, so I actually watched this movie when the COVID-19 pandemic was just like declared and everyone was told to stay home. Half this movie is about these people staying indoors because it literally gets the stakes literally become if you go outside, the superstorm could kill you. So I kind of really had a deep relation to that with, watching these kids stay inside and have their dad come to save them. But the other thing that I really noticed was that, say what you will about Roland Emmerich as a storyteller, but when he portrays like crowds panicking, he does it particularly well. Like, do you remember the scene where they're in the when he shows like mass panic, like the scene where he shows the scene where like everyone who escaped the tidal wave is huddled together in the library, and there's the camera pans through the crowd and you hear people on the phone like talking to relatives like all over the country, like telling them what had happened, that you really feel like they actually experienced that disaster. So credit where credit's due. This is related to Roland Emmerich, but not related to this movie. The scene in New York City in Independence Day when all the New Yorkers see the alien ship for the first time and cars start crashing, people start running. Like, Roland Emmerich knows how to direct mass panic. So credit where credit's due.
That is that is a good point. He does sort of woven in like media in the way, like, like we like back then, like, I know this is kind of more pre-internet, before internet kind of like really became a sort of a necessity and a common thing of today, but like we get all of our information from the news.
Yeah.
So that's why there's so many parts in like both like Independence Day and Day After Tomorrow where like it always cuts to like news footage of people just talking about like information and giving society like that. I like that sort of like a nice touch to his films.
One of the things that you want to talk about
I was gonna say, like, one really good positive thing about Day After Tomorrow is that I do like the score in the film.
It's very good.
I do like some cinema, like there's some shots in the film that look really nice. Like there's that really great money shot at the end where Dennis Quaid and his friend make it to frozen New York, and there's like that one kind of like wide shot pulling out and shows like the city all frozen, and and it's just showing like two people just walking. Like, I don't know. There's a good score. There's a good kind of like. I think the part that really was nice and effective, because did you guys see this film in the theater?
I didn't know. I kind of
No,
wish I did.
I
though.
saw
I didn't
it.
see it till
Oh,
2 years
man.
later.
I saw it though. As a 11-year-old seeing this movie on the theater, oh, there was parts where I was like on the edge of my seat. That scene in L.A. where the news anchor is just like, right behind me, there's a twister, and then like the camera pans over and he gets like hit by that fucking sign.
Yeah.
I like jumped out of my fucking seat. I was just like, holy shit, I did not see that coming. And then like I'm on the edge of my seat where like that janitor in that building is like in the other room, and we're focusing on this like this two ditzy couple that's making out, and they look out the window, and you can tell the tornado's coming to them, but it cuts to the janitor just in the hallway, and the power goes out, but it goes quiet.
Yeah.
And like it just like he opens the door, and the whole half of the building is just gone.
Yeah.
I just remember like that image, and like it just shows the devastation afterwards. It pulls out.
Yeah.
And like just the kind of the music, I don't know. I just remember thinking like, whoa, that was a nice way to handle that actually.
Yeah.
Another, this doesn't have to do anything with the movie or the quality itself, but another interesting trivia factotum about this movie is it had the highest opening weekend of any, this is still true even with inflation, highest opening weekend ever of any movie to not premiere in the #1 spot.
Wow.
That's interesting.
So it came out in 2004, which was a pretty big, heavy year for movies. I think Shrek 2 was dominating the charts at the time.
Shrek 2 would have been
And
#1 on this movie's opening weekend.
And it premiered with like almost like $80-90 million.
Wow.
And came in second place. So it never hit #1 at the box office, but still did colossal.
That's pretty good.
It's the best runner-up of all time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we all agree here that the dumbest scene in this film is Jake Gyllenhaal and his friends outrunning the cold?
Not the wolf attack.
Sure.
I mean, I get that it was set up ahead of time, and it's like, how the fuck would those wolves just survive both the fucking tsunami and the everything freezing over? It's like all of a sudden those fucking wolves escape because they got out of their cages in the zoo. That's kind of dumb. But them outrunning the fucking everything freezing, that's not how it works. Everything would just freeze automatically. There's no like, oh, we need to run away from everything freezing. Like, it's so stupid.
What's interesting is I had a couple of I saw this movie like a little bit later after it came out, and I had a couple of scenes described to me by friends that I think at school. There's a scene where, and they sounded like funny scenes. The scene where you said like the news reporter in LA getting taken out by a flying sign. Like when I heard that scene described to me, that my friends made it sound like it was funny. When I actually saw the scene, I'm like, oh my god, that's horrifying. Another scene that was described to me as a funny scene is, oh, giant hail like kills a guy. I'm like, that sounds hilarious. And then you watch it, it's like actually it's not funny at all. Like,
yeah, you're kind of like, I don't know how to feel because it's just like, well, it is made for the spectacle of wanting to watch people die.
Remember how I said I watched this movie when COVID-19 was first becoming a problem, and I related deeply to the whole theme of having to stay inside and keep safe? Well, another thing I related to was the scene where Jake Gyllenhaal gets into a spat with the police officer who I guess took charge of guiding the survivors. If these people go outside, they will freeze to death. Like, he's literally like, everyone is like saying, oh, we have to leave New York City. We have to get out and go find a refuge. Like, we have to flee the city. And then he keeps screaming at everyone, you can't survive in this storm. You'll die. Like, isn't that like, oh, I don't know, like talking to someone who won't wear a fucking mask?
Oh god, let's not get into that. But yes, it's very comparable. Sure, and then, there's always going to be the offense of people. Sure,
you know, when
I don't want to get into that.
Up until COVID, we actually saw scenes like that and said, no, people wouldn't be this stupid. And then real life happened, and we're like, oh wait, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Michael, what did you think of this movie? I don't think you've.
It's fine. It's middling. It didn't do as much for me as many of the movies we've talked about tonight. Like, I just think it's like a little. I just think it's pretty average. I do kind of like the stuff that's happening in the library. Like there was a few kind of like interesting kind of moments or kind of like lines here and there that kind of drew me in, but I mean that's not really like I think that is kind of the heart of the movie, but that's not what people went to go see this movie for.
Yeah.
So it's kind of antithetical to any quality of.
They went to see shit get destroyed. Oh, by the way, Cody, did you or Michael can answer this. What'd you guys think of that cheesy scene where a tornado specifically goes after the Hollywood sign? That was funny.
I mean, it's just another landmark getting destroyed. That's just sort of a trope of his films.
Roland Emmerich wanted that scene in the movie that shot in the movie to basically like give the finger to the studio system, who ironically he wouldn't be where he is without it. So
very true, very true.
Yeah, I was gonna say he doesn't exactly seem like a candidate that's not benefited from the studio system. Whatever.
Well,
cool.
I guess.
What was the last film?
The last one is, for me, I saw this in the theater, and I had such a great time that it actually, very comparable to eating fast food. You feel like shit afterwards, because I think I was done with disaster films after 2012. It was just too much of a good thing that just left this, like, empty impact on me, where I felt like I grew up. Yeah. I honestly felt like I grew out of that subgenre. Like it's like I don't care about these films anymore because of this film and because of how overly long and kind of an indulgent mess it was. And I didn't like that. It's way too long. It's very self-indulgent, and it's obviously dated because we're talking almost 10 years from when this film, when the Mayans predicted that we were going to die because they just stopped doing the calendar. Oh, no. I literally remember the day, it was like December 21st, 2012. Yeah. I put on my Facebook, I literally wrote on my Facebook, before it happens, everybody, I just want you all to know, I've always hated you.
My buddy Andrew,
that got like tons of likes. Got tons of likes.
My buddy Andrew,
that's funny.
Who I went to high school with. He posted on the day when nothing happened. He posted that quote from Morpheus in Matrix Reloaded. "We are still here." Yeah.
I mean, just take that scene of John Cusack running for that plane as the volcano is exploding behind him. If you watch that scene out of context, you're like, this is a comedy, right?
Yeah.
Like is this literally a comedy? It's him running on a green screen. It just looks hilariously bad.
Can I just say, Cody, remember how you said The Day After Tomorrow has it all? You know, they have like hail, tornadoes, tidal waves, killer snowstorms, hurricanes.
This has it all.
2012 trumps the day after. 2012 makes The Day After Tomorrow look tame. 2012 has tidal waves that take out a cruise ship. It has earthquakes that rip apart Los Angeles. Look, LA literally pancakes and slides into the ocean from the fault line ripping in half, or it rips like 3 ways in one. The Yellowstone supervolcano actually goes kerplooey, which is something that may or may not happen in our lifetime, by the way. In 2020, we had some tremors over at Yellowstone, and there's actually a theory that we might see a super eruption there in the next 10 years. I don't know. There's also killer tsunamis destroy mountain ranges. Killer tsunamis, super volcanoes, killer earthquakes. Did I miss anything?
I think that's kind of all, but it's a lot.
Yeah.
Like, do you guys okay, going into the tone of this film, again, with Roland Emmerich films, I don't know whether or not I'm supposed to be laughing or I'm supposed to be into the intensity of a scene. There's no scene that points this out better than, do you guys remember when the earthquake was starting to happen in LA and they had to all rush into the limo and race it to the airport? And they're literally honking at these 2 elderly women in the car in front of them, like, honk, honk, get out of the way, get out of the way. And it cuts to like this flat comedic shot. It's like straight out of an episode of Seinfeld, like when they're in a car and they're like, oh, what's that noise behind us? And then they crash into like a fucking like piece of like the earth breaking apart. And I'm like, I literally, the tone, I have no idea. I'm like lost.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know how I'm supposed to feel during this.
There's, by the way, it would have been fine. Okay, if the movie just focused on John Cusack trying to get his family to safety, that would have been enough for me. No, it has to focus on 20 different characters. No, I am like I feel like I'm exaggerating, but it doesn't feel like, because you have Chitwell Ejiofor is the dude who discovers the whole end of the world thing. You have the president and his daughter, Danny Glover and Thandie Newton. You have this random Russian billionaire who is investing in this boxer, and he has these two bratty twin boys. And
I laughed my ass off during his death scene where he like throws both of his sons to safety and he's just like falling to his death. Yeah. I laugh every time I see that.
Then there's also the pilot and this girl who there's also Amanda Peet, who is John Cusack's ex-wife, is dating this plastic surgeon who apparently gave a boob job to the girlfriend of the Russian guy. And
wait. Evan, are you saying that John Cusack is recently divorced and his kids don't like him?
No! You had to.
And there's Wait, you're saying that there's a rivalry, there's a rival with the stepfather? This is groundbreaking.
You couldn't leave that trope alone, could you?
God.
Why couldn't
no one can leave this trope alone?
It's like, seriously. Like, oh, and by the way, Roland Emmerich would not leave this trope alone ever, because 2 years late, like 4 years later, no, in 2013, he brought back the washed-up dad trope in White House Down, which is not a natural disaster. That's a man-made disaster movie. We're not talking about man-made disaster movies. We're talking about natural disasters. And he couldn't leave the...
He can't let it go, yeah.
He couldn't leave he could not leave the irresponsible father figure trope alone, even for movies that have nothing to do with disasters. But so, yeah.
That's actually one of his better films, in my opinion. White House Down is actually quite a bit of fun.
White House Down is something. I enjoyed it. I thought it was just the right amount of over the top in where, like, I can still take this seriously. Like, it's good.
Yeah.
Same thing goes for...
It's basically Die Hard. It's basically Die Hard in the White House.
No. Olympus Has Fallen is Die Hard in the White House. No, Olympus Has...
Oh, yeah, that was the same year.
Yep.
Wasn't that the exact same year?
Yeah.
Oh, another copycat movie. Yeah. Oh my god.
So get back on topic. Yeah. So 2012. Something I actually predicted would happen in the movie when I saw this movie in the theater, and the one scene that actually made me legitimately like afraid was there was a scene where Yellowstone actually explodes, and that scene was actually like the initial shot where Yellowstone erupts. That was actually really scary, but it had 2 seconds later. It's
completely, Woody Harrelson's character undercuts everything.
Oh, I forgot when I was naming off characters. I completely forgot Woody Harrelson plays a random ass conspiracy nut living in Yellowstone National Park. Why?
I have goosebumps. Oh, that's all I remember him saying that stupid.
He's always worked a lot, but there was like a span of like a couple years starting kind of around when that movie came out where he was in like everything. He was just popping up like crazy.
Yeah. I remember that movie 2012 came out 2 weeks after Zombieland, which I also saw him in. And
I remember seeing that in the theater.
And here's the other thing. By the way, in terms of characters, there's one trope I completely forgot to mention. Human villain in a movie about the end of the fucking world. You have Oliver Platt. Like, What the hell? Why did he need to be a villain?
Here's one thing nice about Oliver Platt. He's from Windsor, Ontario.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, there you
I
go.
knew he was Canadian.
Yeah,
I didn't realize he was from there. That's awesome.
Hey Cody, if you ever run into him and he's at a restaurant eating lava cake, get into his food and say, "It's fucking molten, asshole! You're not getting to me! He's not getting to me!"
That was a little bit of a deep cut.
He would probably say, "Oh right, 2012. I'm happy with the paycheck I got."
Yeah.
Evan, I appreciated the reference. It was kind of a deep cut, though. I'm not sure how many people.
I don't know. I don't know what that was.
That was from Chef.
Oh, okay. But with
I appreciate it.
But
I appreciate
Michael, what do you think of this giant fucking end of the world movie? Oh my god.
Well, sadly, I don't have a lot to say about this one. I never got around to seeing 2012.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. Again, I don't know if this is just one of these things only I find funny, but I remember thinking at the time it was so silly that they made this movie called 2012 that came out in 2009. Part of me was like, hey, why didn't you just release it in 2012? And then the other part of me was like, it's a little too silly to make a movie that takes place only 3 years in the future. I just remember not being able to wrap my head around why it was made, so I don't think I ever saw it.
There's literally a scene in this movie, Michael, where Amanda Peet and the stepfather character, they're in the supermarket and they're talking. They're like, the guy goes, "I don't know, honey. I just think that something's pulling us apart." And then as that happened, literally a cavern opens up in the ground with an earthquake separating the two of them, and then that was the end of the scene.
That sounds like a panel from like the Far Side.
When I saw 2012 in the theater for the first time, I predicted the stepdad would die, and he dies.
But it takes so long. Like, I remember the whole movie was them inside the gear of, we have to give Michael a little bit of context here. So okay, this is what's so nice about the stakes in The Day After Tomorrow is that you got Bilbo Baggins, Ian Holm himself saying, well, we're in another ice age. The only thing we can do is save as many people as we can. Okay, good. That's enough stakes you can do. It's the end of the fucking world, right? In 2012. So how the hell can you get more higher stakes than that than you're basically just like dodging your inevitable death, right? But oh no, Michael, there's hope. They built, and I'm not kidding, in this ham-fisted biblical shoehorned in of a reference, they make arcs.
They make 3 giant ships.
Yikes.
They make 3 giant
arcs. Literally carrying, priceless art that they don't want to be destroyed. Animals, rich people are only allowed to be in there.
I know.
And the whole movie, it felt like the whole movie, the family was trying to escape inside, the propeller, gear system underneath the ship. The whole movie takes place there. That's all I remember. Is it took, an hour for them just to get inside the Ark. It was so annoying.
And by the way, Chiwetel Ejiofor, it tries to be the voice of reason, but it ultimately falls flat because I saw Film Brain's review of this movie, and there's a scene where he sees how big the hotel rooms is. What? You could fit 10 people in here. Yeah, and then you'd risk starvation, resource draining 10 times faster. So I understand where he's coming from. It's why are we saving only rich people? Why couldn't we save the common man? I get that, but at the same time, it's you would cause more problems than you'd solve by saving more people.
Or how about we just accept it as a species? Let's just all go down.
Now,
it's
but the thing,
just accept it.
But Cody, this is one of the things you have to understand about Roland Emmerich. Roland Emmerich is obsessed with conspiracy theories. The underlying theme of this movie is, I remember the first teaser. There's an eerie caption. How would the world's governments prepare 6.5 billion people for the end of the world? They wouldn't. And it's what Roland Emmerich is getting at is, if the world were actually to end, we, the common Joes, wouldn't know about it, the richest, most powerful people in the world would. And there's a reason why we hear so many articles about rich people building bunkers even today, because like they are. There's a theory that's not so much of a theory as it is, whispers that the richest people in the world are preparing for something really bad to go down on this planet, and they're stocking up for it. They're preparing for it. Why do you think they're building bunkers? Why do you think so many of them are investing in space travel? So, yeah.
Actually, you just reminded me of something when you said the trailer. I kid you not. The teaser trailer for this is like, I think it was like a giant wall of waters going over like the mountain, and it's like washing away like
a monastery,
like a monastery with this Buddhist guy like ringing like the bells, and he's like praying, and it's all like visual, and it's set to the exact same eerie tone that the Shining trailer had, where the blood rushes out of the elevator. It's like, Roland Emmerich, you're not trying to be like Spielberg now, you're trying to be like Kubrick.
Yeah.
Instead of it being a big wash of blood coming out of the elevator, you got walls of water coming over the mountains and washing away everything. I'm like, oh my god. I don't even know what to say. This movie just pisses me off. It seems like too good of a thing, but like it's just too much. Well, and it's just so annoying, and it killed the subgenre for me. It killed it.
It's funny.
It killed it for me.
That's very. I'm gonna appropriately tack on. Roland Emmerich intended this disaster movie to be the end of all disaster movies. Like he wanted to just make it so that every other disaster movie that gets made after this won't top this. So
it actually seems like the most disaster films that do come out are ones that are like the direct to video, like Asylum piece of craps that are trying to keep this alive. But like who the hell is gonna watch those? Like they have the acting of like of a worse than a preschool worse than a grade school play with special effects that look like they're done on like After Effects by some Joe Schmo. Like who gives a shit about those? Yeah, I don't know. Well, on that note, I mean, is there any other feelings you guys have about this certain subgenre that hasn't really been said yet?
I made a prediction, and I think there might be some truth to it, but when COVID-19 happened, I predicted that Hollywood would start going back on a trend, and more disaster movies would start getting greenlit in the coming decade. And I think we're already kind of seeing that with what's that? There was a really interesting series. I can't remember the name of it, and I can't remember. I think it was about like no. There's a series that's about like an oncoming asteroid. I can't remember which series it's which streaming service it's on, and I can't remember its name. But I just remember, and I'm thinking, yeah, they're gonna start greenlighting. The studios are going to want more disaster series, and they're going to want more disaster movies because, like, in real life, we as a society for the past almost 2 years have been living in a real life disaster scenario. So people are going to find the disaster genre more relatable in the 2020s.
So you think there's probably going to be a revival?
It might come back, and hey, if you can add innovation to the genre, please do it. Like, I'm gonna even though like it's not very memorable, I do think that Deep Impact was probably the most innovative of all these disaster movies we talked about, in that because it ditches all the tropes that I talked about and does its own thing, and I really admire it for that. I do wish it was more memorable, like you guys agree, but the fact that I just remember how unique it was from other movies of this caliber is what has me respect it. But I feel like,
I'm open for that.
This genre could come back, and I believe this genre can come back. And if it does, filmmakers, if you're listening to this, please add new tropes to the genre, innovate it, make it better, make good disaster movies.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. I mean, not that the movies we talked about, they're hokey, they have charms to them, but ultimately, the screenwriters in the 90s and 2000s, they just had Bob's Big Book of Movie Cliches on their bedside, and they just read like a couple pages before their writing sessions.
Exactly.
Every night.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, make disaster movies great again.
Start the hashtag.
Yeah.
What about you, Michael?
I like this genre, and I hope that it sticks around for a while. Like I was kind of saying earlier in the conversation, I really do think a good disaster movie is bolstered by a good cast. I think that I really like movies that are just about people banding together, whether it's a disaster movie or a heist movie or superhero movie or what. I like people throwing aside their differences for the greater good and just kind of like overcoming something. I think that that's like we've talked a lot about tropes and stuff, but I do think that that's a formula that's always going to win for me. Like I do like that idea always. So I would love to see more disaster movies. I'd love to see better disaster movies, and I think I love ensemble movies in like any genre. So whenever you can get like kind of like 6 to 10 like kind of key like really good like players and actors that sort of have this like shared universe kind of story going on, I'm always gonna like that.
Yeah.
So like whenever a movie can kind of be like an actor's playhouse and they can kind of like showcase some sort of good chops, I'm always gonna like that. So I want to see more disaster movies, and I want them to be good, and I want them to curate good talent.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a, like I said, a subgenre that's kind of like a, a light watch, a guilty pleasure, whatever, however you want to say it. It was always so
Yeah.
It was always so fun to even like, whether it's like a disaster movie or some sort of survival thriller, like to point out, like you almost play a game in your head of like who's gonna die and who's gonna live. You're like, okay, clearly this person's expendable. He's gonna die. Maybe they'll keep this person around. Okay, that person's definitely gonna die. And then by the end of the movie, you always like just play a just check mark in your head, like was I right or was I wrong? That's kind of the appeal to me is, and then very occasionally, like there's some thrilling moments in these movies, like whether they pull it off effectively or if you're caught up in the bad humor or the trope or whatever. But sometimes like you get caught up in the spectacle of it, and it's I don't know, it's I get a kick out of it. It's not cinema. I mean, there's some parts that may look cinematic and have the appeal to it, but it's not like real cinema. It's just like, it's like candy, and there's nothing wrong with having a little bit of candy.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, thank you for destroying the earth tonight with me. Thank you.
It was fun.
Thank you so much.
Let's do it.
Michael
Let's do
Lake.
it again sometime.
Michael Lake rose the lakes and the oceans and the waters and made everybody bleed. Evan Mead. I don't fucking know. I'm trying to make a goddamn pun with this. There's some pun in there somewhere. I had to let it like flourish. God damn it. No, thank you guys for joining me again on Pop Talk. And everybody listening, definitely subscribe to So to Speak. Drop a like, drop a comment, and I'm gonna go have sex with Mother Nature now. Bye.
Have fun.